thank you, Paul, for having me back on.
Yeah, so how have things been going? What's going on down there in South Arkansas?
Man, I'm telling you, we are so excited about the efforts that we're putting forth, the things that are getting done. It is a slow and a long process, but, man, we are seeing some great and encouraging things happening with our people and across the state, actually. We're doing all kinds of new meetings, and you covered it a week or so ago, the Kilt Walk in Fayetteville, open carry Kilt Walk, which I'm going to be honest with you, I just get hysterical every time I think about that. That is so awesome that we have the right to not only open carry, but to promote the heritage behind the kilts. And, again, I don't know that I could wear one. That's not my heritage.
Well, you'd be appropriating somebody else's culture. The left would have a meltdown. You can't appropriate culture.
Absolutely. I got in a discussion about that, because somebody on our page, on our main page, said, "Well, I just don't believe that's what POA 746 is about." Well, I believe it is, because it's about our heritage and our rights. And I told that guy, I said, it'd be the same difference with me walking down the street, open carrying with a rebel flag.
Yeah,
I'm from the South. That's my heritage, And so, even though that stirs some things up in another aspect, of course, but man, we're having such a great time. It is awesome. I'm loving traveling across the state, meeting new people, and Paul, I'm just blown away that people really have bought into the narrative that the government knows best for us, and they are our friends, and they take care of us, and we should always obey what they say, even if it contradicts the laws. And I grew up that way, a good person is someone who never questions. Well, that's just not the American way.
That's true.
We were founded on people that were just tired of being bullied and being ruled by tyrants. And I want to be careful there, because I don't ever want to give the impression that we're a bunch of lunatics running around wanting to shoot somebody. That's just not what POA 746 is about at all. We're pastors, we're business owners, we're farmers, we're people that just love our country and love our rights. Mm-hmm. And, man, we're traveling across the state and having meetings. And down here in southeast Arkansas, it's a little harder because of the mindset, But we're definitely educating people and talking to people. We've got we had a meeting in Warren, Arkansas, just a few weeks ago, and decided to do an open carry walk, mm-hmm. because some of the officials. Let me rephrase that. We had heard that some of the officials said, "Well, there won't be no guns carried around here." Well, that's just not what was said. Senator Linda Collins Smith came down, visited with some of the officers, the Leos there in town, and everything just was awesome. They even took pictures together. I mean, it was just amazing, an amazing time.
Good for her, Good for her using her platform to say, "Hey, this is credible. This is what the law says."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you said the mindset, though. You said because of the mindset down here. What is that mindset? Is it the mindset that we find on the radical left that say that guns kill people? It's not the evil heart of man that is acting to kill somebody.
Yes, I'm afraid that there's a whole generation that has grown up. When I was in high school, it was very hard to find a pickup in the parking lot of the high school that didn't have a shotgun or a 22 in the rack in the back window, because we would go hunting, either on the way to school or after school. But that's not the generation we live in now, and because of social media and movies and all the nonsense, guns have been portrayed as evil, and only evil people have them. And boy, that couldn't be further from the truth, Paul. And of course, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but if we're not careful, what we do is we any rights that we have that are regulated are soon to be taken away from us. And and it's almost paradoxical, but one of the greatest sayings that's ever been said was that only way to stop a bad man with a gun is a good man with a gun.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us this morning on this Monday. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. The phone number, as always, is 870-275-9799. If you want to contribute to the program, call or text or sound off over on the YouTube page. That's Conduit News. Over at YouTube, just search, subscribe, click the little bell to receive notifications. Also, over at Facebook.com/Conduit News as well. All right, so what's the top news? My top news story over the weekend is the fact, and it's a praise, if you will, the fact that Pastor Andrew Brunson is no longer in the country of Turkey. He's no longer being held by President Erdogan. They say Erdogan. No, it's Erdogan. That's what it is to me anyway, because it just sounds worse. Joel Pollack with the story over at Breitbart about how evangelical leaders across the country are very happy with what the Trump administration did, the pressure that they put on the Turkish lira, through sanctions and everything else. And eventually, I think Turkey here is kind of tapping out. They're saying enough's enough. Okay, we'll give you the pastor that you want. I mean, this is a stark contrast. And this isn't just what one pastor. I mean, President Trump has done this with a bunch of other people as well, across really multiple countries across the globe. Politico even notes in an article titled "I love him so much I can hardly explain it." Evangelical leaders praised Trump after the pastor's release. From Politico, when a Turkish court released American Andrew Brunson after 2 years of confinement, it was a profound moment for Christian evangelicals who had made the pastor a symbol of religious persecution worldwide. In Brunson's case and others, they had prayed for deliverance, and President Donald Trump delivered, they said. Again and again, evangelical activists say the administration has made good on promises made to the faith voters who lifted Trump into office, a group he will sorely need to turn out again in 2020. Some of the administration's actions have impressed Christian groups, have come as seismic pronouncements such as formally recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, others such as installing hundreds of conservative jurists on federal courts have come more gradually but will have an impact for generations. Actually, there was 15 or so, a lot of people didn't see this, 15 or so judges were confirmed all at once by the United States Senate, thanks to a little bit of a interesting move by Mitch McConnell. Did you hear about this? They confirmed 15 of Trump's judicial nominees because these Senate Democrats didn't want to stay in Washington, and they were going to basically have this normal, I think, what is it, you got to have a multiple days, or is it 5 days, 10 days? I don't know how many days it is, but you have to let these judges kind of sit and marinate for a little bit. Well, the Democrats and the left is furious about this. By the way, the left is absolutely furious that the Democrats, incumbents or not, who are trying to hang on. I'm talking about in vulnerable red states that went for Trump, like Manchin and South Dakota and other places, McCaskill and Missouri. I'm talking hardcore leftists. They're furious at this, but they caved. The Democrats caved and said, "You know what? Never mind. We'll make a deal. We'll waive that privilege." And as a result, you got 15 new judges, according to the report that I read, that kind of just got fast-tracked through. Joel Pollak goes on, in a touching moment in the White House, Andrew Brunson knelt and prayed for the president, asking that he be given the wisdom to lead the country and the strength to fulfill his plans for governing it. His wife, Noreen, joined him in prayer. While evangelical leaders may not approve of President Trump's past personal conduct, they are more than satisfied with his track record of delivering on his promises to religious voters. Again, to me, that's maybe the biggest story to kind of start the week off with, because I know there were a lot of people out there, not just praying for Pastor Brunson, but praying for Christians all across the world. And there's still a lot of them out there, in China specifically, that are going through much worse. They don't have the public eye, the scrutiny that Andrew Brunson had on him in the press and everything else. There's Christians in China that aren't so lucky to be in the headlines, and so the government is going to be less concerned as to what happens to them. The telephone number 870-275-9799. Okay, so speaking of Turkey, this is weird to me. This is another story, and this is a shift that you're seeing in the narrative, okay? And let me just break it down for you real quick. You know what the shift in the narrative you're seeing about attacking President Trump? It's pretty simple. Well, first of all, you got to what's the past narrative? Well, Donald Trump is a neo-Nazi KKK member who is also a KGB agent, okay? That's and now he is a I guess a Saudi Arabian plant that is trying to cozy up too close to the government of Saudi Arabia. That's the new thing that's being injected here, because you have Turkey that is they're claiming here that you have this so-called journalist. They're finally getting around to saying that this guy who has disappeared, presumed dead, that according to reports, his name is Khashoggi, Jamal Khashoggi, a Saudi, that he goes into the Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey, and the Saudi Arabian government's been after him for a long time, and they basically, he goes in and never comes out. And everybody, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's all in unison. You have Republicans, you have Democrat senators, Republican senators, Marco Rubio, I think Bob Corker, who were on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and in unison, there's now all of a sudden this domestic pressure on President Trump to distance himself from Saudi Arabia and to make Saudi Arabia suffer in some way, economic sanctions or whatever, if in fact it is proven. Of course, the Turkish government says they've got the cameras or they've got proof. Saudi Arabia says it's not true. Of course, they're going to say that. But did you notice it was like a switch that went off? Did you notice it was like a shift in the narrative against President Trump? It's like, okay, now let's create another international situation. I'm telling you, man, this guy has more identities than somebody in the LGBT RSTLNE would you like to buy a Val community. President Trump does. Again, KGB agent, KKK, Nazi. I mean, you just name them. I mean, it's just constantly evolving. So I'm skeptical because of a lot of reasons. I don't trust the mainstream media in my own country. What makes any of us think that we can trust the mainstream media internationally to deliver us news, especially when we're talking about news originating from one of the most deceptive places on the planet, and that is the Middle Eastern region, okay? A culture that has no problems lying to get what they want. It's just what happens. It's perfectly accepted and it's taught over there, okay? So we have to pump the brakes a little bit. The fact of the matter is, and I'm not some geopolitical expert, let me be very clear, but I do try to keep tabs on where things are, where things stand. And I'll tell you this, the first trip that President Trump made, to my knowledge, if memory serves correct, was to Saudi Arabia when he was elected. And Saudi Arabia had this new crown prince, bin Salman, right, or bin Salman. And this guy is known as a reformer of Saudi Arabia. And it's kind of pretty much known that, there was an arms deal, some sort of arms deal made with Saudi Arabia with Trump. and that kind of kicked off what ended up being a detention of a ton of Saudi Arabian government officials who, well, if you really want to talk about it, they're saying that a lot of those that's the Saudi wealth was funding the Democrat Party in a lot of instances. Do you remember the year anniversary of President Trump's election? Okay, it was supposed to be what? Do you remember? Do you remember what it was called? November 2017 was supposed to be the Day of Rage. It was the anniversary of the election of the president, where he defied the odds, he's upset the status quo. It was supposed to be a day of rage, okay? But around that time, you had Saudi Arabia, bin Salman, detaining all of these people, freezing accounts, demanding that if you want your freedom as a member of the royal family, that you're going to pay the royal family is going to be able to confiscate your homes, your wealth, and everything else. And there was one guy specifically. He was that what's his name? Joe, will you Google the guy who it's a Saudi Arabian guy who's got a lot of stake in Twitter of all things. I'm talking about a lot of stock and a lot of pull on Twitter. Well, the speculation was the Day of Rage was pretty much nothing. It fizzled. It kind of fizzled. And the speculation was the reason it fizzled is because the protesters didn't get their money. Something happened and the protesters didn't get their money. And I'm just telling you, this is what it is. And so I think you at least have to know some of the speculative background. Again, I don't trust my own media here in my own country, and neither do you out there listening. Why would we just take people at their word, right? You're going to at least need to get some other opinions. Okay, so it's Prince Alawid bin Talal bin... Okay, let's just say Alawid bin Talal. That's his name. Invested $300 million in Twitter. Now owns 34.9 million shares of Twitter's common stock. I don't think that's true. When was the article? When's this article dated? I don't think that's true anymore. That's from 2015, okay? So this guy is essentially not in good standing with the Saudi government because Crown Prince bin Salman was put in there. And bin Salman and Trump have a decent relationship, okay? Now, members of the Senate Intel Committee will at least tell you, not Senate Intel Committee, I'm sorry, Senate Foreign Relations Committee will at least tell you, I mean, even Marco Rubio was out there saying, hey, listen, Saudi Arabia is valuable because they don't like Iran, so they're valuable. We're trying to get rid of Iran. But if they did this, if they killed this guy and dismembered him inside a Turkish embassy and yada, 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 then we've got to do something. We've got to reassess or whatever. Now, regardless of what happened, we do need to find out. Sure, we need to do our due diligence. We need to find out. But you will be told, this is my prediction, they're not going to let this go. This is going to be, they're going to use this to make the president look bad. It just is what it is. It's just what happens. Now, over at PJ Media, they have a different take on this Saudi Arabian U.S./U.S. resident, not U.S. citizen, U.S. resident, Saudi Jamal Khashoggi. Now, he is or was or somehow, if he's still alive, a contributor to the Washington Post. And so the media will use this if President Trump doesn't do something. They're going to say, you see, he really does hate the media when he calls us the enemy of the American people. The enemy of the American people, and he's okay with a Washington Post journalist. That's what they're going to say. A Washington Post journalist. A Washington Post journalist. The guy was in Turkey. Have any of you ever been to Turkey? He's not your average Washington Post journalist. His name is Jamal Khashoggi. He's from Saudi Arabia. Okay? I'm just saying, doesn't that change the context of the story? When you first saw the headline of Washington Post journalist thought to be dismembered and dead. Oh, my gosh. Really? They're abducting American? Nope, not an American citizen. Not an American citizen, but that may be what you were supposed to believe. Okay, so over at PJ Media, they report on German reports. You know what I have started to listen, I mean, like I said, I don't trust my own media. But there are some interesting stories that come out from other parts of the country. For example, France did this amazing expose on what's going on in South Africa with white farmers. They actually went down in there and interviewed people who've been murdered. And yet our press says President Trump's a liar when he says that there's a situation with white landowners in South Africa. And yet you have a French news agency that does a very thorough and comprehensive report about it. German press reveals Saudi spook saga began Khashoggi disappearance. Okay? This is, let's see here, 1 second. Pull this up. Go ahead and throw this up there. This is from PJ Media. Germany's leading right-of-center daily Die Welt this morning reveals that Jamal Khashoggi was not a journalist but a high-level operative for the Saudi intelligence service, an intimate of Osama bin Laden, and the nephew of the shadiest of all Arab arms dealers, the infamous Adnan Khashoggi. John Bradley reported last week in The Spectator that Khashoggi, who allegedly met a grisly end in a Saudi consulate in Istanbul, was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamist organization that, among other things, wants to replace the Saudi monarchy with a modern Islamist totalitarian state. Well, then, that's certainly laying out a motive. So much for the whining in the establishment media about freedom of the press and protection of the rights of journalists. The presumed dead Khashoggi was a top-level spook who swore fealty to some of the Arab world's nastiest elements and who played a high-stakes game in Saudi spookdom. We don't know why he disappeared, but we know what we don't know. Among other things, we know that Khashoggi was bitterly opposed to the new Saudi government's rapprochement with the State of Israel. Stop. That is a key point that I have left out here. Not only did Donald Trump move the embassy to Jerusalem, the United States Embassy to Jerusalem, Saudi Arabia has recognized Israel's right to exist. Think about that. You don't think that enrages people in the Middle East? I'm bringing this up. You guys need to look into this stuff yourself. I'm just telling you, this is where I see the media going. It's kind of the next round of things. You just wait. In the meantime, President Trump's going to continue to have these massive rallies where people are, the lines are 4 people deep and a mile long, and they still can't get in the building to see him. But just wanted to report on this because I feel like almost all of your outlets are going to tell you what allegedly just happened, but they're not going to tell you all of the other things that have happened up to this point. And it gives you a little bit more perspective, and it certainly doesn't give you any sort of black and white perspective of, when it comes to Middle Eastern politics and things like that. Like, it's definitely not a black and white situation. But the media will try to make it that way if they can make President Trump look bad. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. My name's Paul Harrell. Back in a moment.
And it has nothing to do with the tool. And as I think me and you spoke one other time, the first mass killing in the Old Testament was in Genesis, and it was with a rock. Cain killed Abel with a rock, and a fourth of the population was taken out. Mm-hmm. So it had nothing to do with the tool. There are just as many people that could be killed with a knife or a box cutter. Well, what are we going to do? We can't start regulating the box cutter.
Yeah. Well, and the other, so the reason the left is against this idea of, arming, people having the right to bear arms or people having semi-automatic weapons is because of public safety. I mean, that's what they say, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say. Now, I can take their argument and I can just show them the footage of the Salt Bowl false alarm with all of the people running for cover unarmed, and that's how the government actually sees us. They see us as sheep.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst. How are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal.
Ethics.
Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. I haven't even told you what we got coming up for you on the show. Coming up at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking with a libertarian candidate. Oh, no! A libertarian! Oh, no! We don't want to upset the delicate sensibilities of the elites in the Republican Party here in the state of Arkansas down at the Marble Palace, do we? We don't want to upset them. We don't want to start. It's Monday, and you want to ruin their whole week. Well, that's not the reason we're doing this, but hey, we're just not afraid of ideas. We're going to be talking with Libertarian Lee Evans. Lee is running for Senate in District 5 up in northwest Arkansas, and he's running against Republican Bob Ballinger. Bob Ballinger beat Brian King. And the reason this caught my eye, the reason this particular race caught my eye, well, number one, I misspoke a couple of months ago. I think it was back when Bob Ballinger made that statement when he said no one down in Little Rock is benefiting from being down there, and of course the crowd started laughing and kind of booing him because that was a ridiculous statement to make. And when I was covering that story, I said that Bob Ballinger was the senator-elect because I just presumed that there were no challengers, especially on the Democrat side. I was wrong. There's a Democrat in the race, there's a Republican in the race, and there's a Libertarian. And anyway, so first of all, I kind of feel obligated to have him on now because it's one thing to have an opinion about whether or not you think somebody's going to win or not. It's a whole other thing to just completely leave out relevant information in the facts, which, I did. I made a slight error there. Of course, we corrected it in the YouTube video and on air and everything else. But the second reason I want to have him on, coming up at the top of the hour, is because he wrote, he's got a newspaper ad that I saw, urging people to, not vote for Bob Ballinger because of him killing Brian King's Medicaid disclosure bill that would have exposed all of the corruption and the people going to jail and everything else that we're seeing a long time ago. So I just felt like that'd be an interesting conversation to have, and that's why we're going to have him on. I don't mean to upset you, ruin your whole week, Little Rock. I mean, Marble Palace, establishment folks. Then at the bottom of the next hour, we'll be talking with the 1st District Republican Chairman, Anita Wells, will be on the program, talk about the importance of these midterm elections. Back in a minute. I saw a meme the other day on Twitter, and it was a bunch of sheep, and it was looking straight at the camera lens, and it was like, after Kavanaugh, we're just waiting for what to be outraged at next. Basically, they're waiting on the media to tell them. This is what it said. Anyway, that the government sees us as these sheep, and they would rather have you cowering in War Memorial Stadium or running for your life, or taking, like that father did, just like, here we go, sweetie, takes his girl by the hand and just starts to try to get towards the exit because they think there's a shooting going on. That's how the government would rather you be than be able to have a gun to protect yourself out in public, and that is radically offensive to me. But that aside, John Calvin, what I would like to talk about as far as guns go is the reason why our founding fathers, the main reason, was because they had just defeated the most powerful military force in the world at the time, the Redcoats, Great Britain, who were oppressive, who didn't want them to have guns. And they understood that they were this close, that the American government was this close. The newly formed American government could flip in an instant. It could flip in a day, and they would need to secure their liberties again, because they understood that a government, that a powerful government can suppress the people. And, when you say that today, and I think that's the main argument, but when you say that today, people have so much faith and confidence. Oh, America would never do that because America never has done that, which is not necessarily true if you look through our history. But yeah, talk about that. That's the main reason why our right to human defense is so important.
Well, and again, Paul, I think, and this is a much deeper discussion, but through our educational system, we have been duped into believing that, again, our government is for us, and they know what's best for us. Ronald Reagan, I real regularly go to his statement of when we feel like a far and distant government can rule our lives better and know what's better for us than we do, and we're a nation that's already in trouble. And I believe that with all my heart, because nobody knows how to protect my family better than I do. Back to your statement, I'm afraid that we have been indoctrinized to believe that the government, that the welfare system, these things are made to take care of us to the point until we have literally became, as you said earlier, sheep. My problem with that is that if you read history and you study history, then you understand.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, 870 did a rally in Ohio. And in an attempt to praise Ohio Civil War General Ulysses S. Grant, he had to define the historical context of what and why Ulysses S. Grant is so famous. And in order to do so, he had to mention Robert E. Lee. Oh, no. Really? The Confederate general? He had to mention Robert E. Lee. Here in Arkansas, we don't like Robert E. Lee. Well, I mean, here in Arkansas, last time the Republicans, they got on their high horse and they decided to separate Robert E. Lee Day from Martin Luther King Day because they're celebrated on the same day, because you can't have a black man and a white man recognized on the same day. That'd go against Dr. King's message. Wait. Oh, right. Yeah. Huh. Anyway, so nobody in their right mind actually, there were people that might be annoyed by the fact that they're both celebrated on the same day, but it just wasn't even an issue. It's not like we all went to the polls and voted for Republicans because we're like, it's an atrocity that these men are on the same day here in Arkansas. It's an atrocity. And nobody was like that. No, it was political opportunists, the governor and others. They love to adopt. This is why Asa goes on MSNBC, so he can be seen as a moderate Republican. They love to adopt the idea or the premise. The media puts out a premise that if you're a Republican, you're a racist and a bigot, and it's on you, and you're guilty of that. Just like the Brett Kavanaugh thing, you're guilty. We don't need any evidence. You're a Republican, so you're guilty of being a racist, and it's on you to prove that you're not. And so the Republicans get in power, and they're like, what? Oh, okay, yeah. We're going to accept the mainstream media's notion that we're racists, and then we're going to prove them wrong, and we're going to separate Martin Luther King Day from Robert E. Lee Day. Of course, they tried it the first time like a year earlier, like in 2015, and it failed. They couldn't separate it. And so what did the mainstream media do? They write articles about how, well, Arkansas Republicans can't separate the days. They must be racist. And they just brought all of the stuff that they were trying to they just brought it all on themselves, just like stupid people do. I mean, this would be like somebody that's stupid would do this. And anyway, then they finally got it done this last time, and everybody was patting themselves on the back. We did it. We separated. Never mind the fact that this was in the middle of the left trying to edit history and tear down Confederate statues and, take the Confederate battle flag away, and because that will solve racial disagreements. Don't you understand? If you just take down the Confederate statue, we won't have racial disagreements ever again. Don't you understand that if you just do these things, that man can somehow fix this fallen world just by doing, and just by our sheer will, we can fix our fallen nature. We can fix the idea that we have arguments and disagreements. And, sometimes we don't, our tendency is to not like other people who aren't exactly like us. We'll fix all that if we just ignore the fact that, men can do bad things in a lifetime, can condone bad things that we now consider really, really bad nowadays, but they can also do good things. I don't know, like contribute to the greatest country on earth at this moment in time. No, we can't do that. We recognize the injustice of slavery, but we can't possibly fathom that, we recognize the imperfection, but we can't possibly fathom how we can still be here today knowing that what went on back in the day. You see, I've said this for a long time. A lot of millennials who, are they believe the way they do because we as a country allowed God to be pushed out of public life, or any concept of a higher power, any concept of a moral compass in our society has been pushed out of public life. And so we have these generations of people now who can recognize injustice, but they don't know how to reconcile it. They don't know how a perfect, holy God can reconcile the situation, can use imperfect people to accomplish good things in the end for his glory and for our good. They don't get that. They recognize the injustice, and so what do they try to do? Well, they got to fix it, right? So if we tear down the statue, if we separate Martin Luther King Day from Robert E. Lee Day, and see, that was so frustrating with Republicans, that they couldn't understand. They don't understand what they're dealing with. Some of them. Some on our side, they don't understand that the left's not going to be appeased, because you know what happened? It's a slippery slope. You see, Arkansas has 4 stars in the center of the diamond on the state flag, and one of those stars, it represents each country that Arkansas has ever been a part of. One of those countries is the Confederate States of America. Guess what they want to do now? Yeah, that's right. They want to change the meaning of one of those stars because it stands for the history of the, associations that Arkansas has been a part of. And they want to change the star because they're not ever going to stop. There's a Civil War memorial statue on the grounds of the Capitol in Little Rock. They will come after that soon, probably this next session. But the Republicans play this game, or the ones who want to prove that they're not racist because they're accepting the phony premise of the mainstream media. They don't get it Maybe now that you see how Donald Trump governs and how he's actually emboldening what were, very much rhinos, Mitch McConnell still are, but you know what I'm saying? Like they're actually able to, because they've seen a leader do it. They've seen a leader say, I'm not going to dance to the mainstream media's beat. I'll dance to my own beat. Media doesn't know what to do, but the people are with Trump. We got to have people here in Arkansas that get this, that understand this. Now, back to this ridiculousness here. President Trump tweeted this out. Go ahead and throw this article up. NBC News has totally and purposely changed the point and meaning of my story about General Robert E. Lee and General Ulysses Grant. It was actually a shout-out to Warrior Grant in the great state in which he was born. As usual, dishonest reporting, even mainstream media is embarrassed. So Trump was facing backlash because he said this. He told a story. Even Byron York said, yeah, this isn't, I mean, look, he was telling a story, a historical story. Ohio is the state that gave us a great president who hasn't been properly recognized. William McKinley has not been properly recognized. What he did in terms of trade, in terms of war, but in terms of trade, and I hate to say in terms of being smart in tariffs, William McKinley has not been properly recognized, but maybe someday he will. It also gave you a general, Ohio, who was incredible. He drank a little bit too much. You know who I'm talking about, right? So Robert E. Lee was a great general, and Abraham Lincoln developed a phobia. He couldn't beat Robert E. Lee. He was going crazy. I don't know if you know this story, but Robert E. Lee was winning battle after battle after battle, and Abraham Lincoln came home, and he said, I can't beat Robert E. Lee. And he had all these great generals. They looked great. They were the top of their class at West Point. They were the greatest people. There was only one problem. They didn't know how the hell to win. They didn't know how to fight. They didn't know how. President Trump went on. And one day, it was looking really bad. And Lincoln just said, you hardly knew his name. And they said, don't take him. He's got a drinking problem. And Lincoln said, I don't care what problem he has. You guys aren't winning. And his name was Grant, General Grant. Now, let's stop there for a second. The fact, again, he had a drinking problem. Now, that's a character flaw, and yet he was able to still, lead the Northern Army where you had, 300,000 people? We're like the only country in the world that's ever gone to war with itself on the principle of trying to end slavery. I don't know any other country that's ever done that before, but you don't look at that. No one ever wants to frame the Civil War like that, by the way. All the men from the North who died the men from the South who died also, but, no one ever wants to frame it like that. And he goes on to talk about Grant. He says, and he went in and he knocked the hell out of everyone. And you know the story. They said to Lincoln, you can't use him anymore. He's an alcoholic. And Lincoln said, I don't care if he's an alcoholic. Frankly, give me 6 or 7 more just like him. He started to win. Ulysses S. Grant really did. He had a serious drinking problem, but man, he was a good general. And he's finally being recognized as a great general. But Lincoln had almost developed a phobia because he was having a hard time with a true great fighter and a great general, Robert E. Lee. But Grant figured it out, and Grant is a great general, and Grant came from right here. Ulysses S. Grant, Ohio is the state that gave us the Wright brothers, and it goes on. That's the full statement from President Donald Trump, right? And, of course, because they, again, assume, well, you're a Republican, so you must be racist, and you said that Robert E. Lee was a good general. And, of course, that must be because you're racist, because there's no way that, Trump is actually assessing, military prowess and, historical battles, some military tactics and things like that. Like he's not talking. No, it must be because he called him a great general because he was fighting for the South and he must love slavery. NBC News has finally sort of limped in a retraction here. Joe, go ahead and go to the next article. So NBC News issued a correction Sunday about Robert E. Lee. Scroll down here. I don't have this one on me. I'm going to have to use the bailout. NBC News issued a correction Sunday of its inaccurate tweet Friday that President Donald Trump had praised Confederate General Robert E. Lee at an Ohio rally. Misquoting the president, and leaving out the context that was setting up praise of Union General Ulysses S. Grant. NBC News originally reported, watch, President Trump says Robert E. Lee was a great general during Ohio rally, calling the Confederate leader incredible. Scrolling down. On Sunday morning, Trump responded that NBC News purposely changed the point of the meeting, and a few hours later, NBC corrected its first tweet and reported this. Scroll down. Correction. An earlier tweet misidentified the general President Trump described as incredible at a rally in Ohio. It was General Ulysses S. Grant, not General Robert E. Lee. An attached video clip lacked the full context for Trump's remark. Here's the full video clip. But the problem is with these mushheads on the left that just, they saw the first tweet, and they're not going to see the second tweet, and they just absorb it, and now they think, oh, okay. I mean, can you honestly imagine what a ridiculous, what a terrible correction? Like, we made a mistake. I mean, that's so significant. We made a mistake about reporting about a Civil War reference that President Trump made. We said that he thought that the South was great, was incredible. He said the South was incredible. And, what we meant, what the real story was, we made a mistake, is he said the North was incredible. I mean, of course, nobody, they don't have any shame here. I mean, that's really what the problem is. They have no shame. No shame at all. Let's see here. What else do we want to go through? Okay, I have these saved. I'm telling you, a lot of stories just really, really got to me this weekend as I was looking at stuff. The Daily Caller headline, Biological Male Wins World Championship in Women's Cycling. Did you hear about this? Every time I say, did you hear about this, I feel like I'm Jay Leno. Did you hear about this? You hear about this? A biological male who identifies as a transgender woman won a Women's World Championship cycling event on Sunday. Rachel McKinnon, a professor at the College of Charleston, won the Women's Sprint 35 to 39 age bracket at the 2018 UCI Masters Track Cycling World Championship in Los Angeles. McKinnon, representing Canada, bested Caroline van Herrickhuizen of the Netherlands and American cyclist Jennifer Wagner to take home the gold. McKinnon celebrated the victory on Twitter, writing this. First transgender woman world champion ... ever. Oh, man. I just feel like, that scene in The Matrix where he's like, ignorance is bliss. I know the Matrix is telling me, sending signals to my brain that this is a nice, tender, juicy piece of filet mignon. I know it's all real. I know it's just chemicals in my brain. But you know what? Ignorance is bliss. First transgender woman world champion ever. Oh my goodness! I don't know. Can we get a photo of her? This is what he looks like. This is he. Up at the top of the page. Top of the page. This is he. Okay, so this biological male raced in a bike race against a bunch of other women and won. And no one is surprised by this at all. I mean, on average, can I even say this? See, this is now sexist, but come on. It's pretty simple here. We have pretty much men have pretty much cornered the market when it comes to athleticism, speed, quickness, strength. We pretty much have a corner on that market, right? Can you say that anymore? Well, we just did. Why? And I know she was representing Canada. why even do sports anymore? I mean, if this is what's going to happen, I just think you just gotta eventually end sports altogether. I mean, what? Allowing biological males who identify as transgender women to compete in women's athletic events has been a controversial subject. Really, why is it controversial? It's very simple. The answer is no, 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 and no. McKinnon in January was quoted in the USA Today arguing against requiring biological males to suppress testosterone as a requirement for competing against women. We cannot have a woman legally recognized as trans woman in society and not be recognized that way in sports. I just don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, this is ridiculous, to say the least. McKinnon also compared restrictions on biological man. Oh, my gosh. See, and this is what should make just listen. McKinnon also compared restrictions on biological males competing in women's events to racial segregation. Quote, this is bigger than sports, and it's about human rights. Yeah, that's right. Because your plight is the same as a historically suppressed African American here in this country. I mean, that's got to be offensive, right? That's got to be so offensive to people who actually, went through desegregation, that whole process. There's always got to be a victim, though. At this point, if you're on the left, you are committed dogmatically. Really, it's religiously at this point. And if, you got to have a victim, you got to have an oppressor. You got to have people against you, because that's how the left is going to get political power. Because then you're going to vote for people that have ridden the wave to power by pitting one American against another American. Really, if you look at what happened last week. I know this is the first little bit of talk radio that many of you are listening to for the entire. This is how you're starting your week, and I really appreciate it. But what happened last week with President Trump and Kanye West was absolutely remarkable. The media was predictable, very, very racist. What CNN allowed on their network, using the N-word to describe Kanye because he's black and he's meeting with a white Republican. You see, here you have, and for those Republicans that were trying to always prove that Republicans were not racist, don't you see now that you'll never win? Back to my initial point about Arkansas, don't you see now that you'll never win with these people? Aside from the mainstream media and their reaction, aside from SNL and all of their bad skits and their liberal humor and everything else, the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, that what happened last week with Kanye West and President Trump was an attempt to actually help most people in the country. It was an attempt to reconcile differences, not saying that we're going to agree on everything, but saying we can agree that we would all like better paying jobs. We can agree that capitalism and industry and business growth actually helps everybody. I mean, and we can agree that racism is being used as a tool to divide us where racism doesn't exist at times. And that's what Kanye said, that racism is a tool to divide us where it doesn't exist sometimes. And he looked at those reporters who were absolutely shocked, and he says, "You think racism can control me?" And now it is a race against time. It's a race against now between the midterms, because if just 5% of black voters switch and decide to vote for the other side, it's not going to be good for the Democrats. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
Was most definitely a time in our history, as far as America, that people had to stand up. I've seen that on Facebook. I'm sure you have too. The little meme that says, "By this, if our forefathers had been here today, they would already be shooting." And that's literally the reason we have become where we are now, because somebody stood up and said, "Hey, enough is enough. We can't take anymore." Again, I don't want to make that sound radical, because that's not what POA 746 is about. We're not radicals. And I've said this to you before. It's not about trying to overthrow the government. It's trying to make sure the government doesn't overthrow us. Mm-hmm. And you know, as far as assault weapons, and that's a real crazy term anyway, assault weapons. But when America was founded, the American patriots had the same kind of
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Oh, to watch the left continue to fight mid-20th century Democrat policies. The Democrat Party of 2018 is essentially, this dawned on me last night. I didn't get any sleep last night for some reason. I couldn't. I tossed and turned all night. To watch the left in this country, the Democrat Party today, essentially fight against their own policies from the mid-20th century. Really, essentially, it's just JFK policies. JFK, sympathetic to, to blue collar. You could even, go as far as unions and that sort of thing, but also believed in massive tax cuts. Also believed in an America First policy. And to watch the left in this country just absolutely destroy. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are some conservative, right-wing stuff that Trump has done as well. I'm just saying, when it comes to watching what their plan is, which is just to obstruct, and who knows? I mean, maybe they're going to add something else, like a brutal Saudi. This is the new thing. Donald Trump is a brutal Saudi Arabian government sympathizer. He's a KGB agent. He's a Nazi. What's next? If the Democrats take back the House, what else is he going to be? Right? Is he going to be? I don't know, find something else like in history. I don't know. He's going to be, he's also a space alien. He's no telling what they're going to make up. I mean, they're always going to try to prove the urination dossier, right? That was phony. That was from a MI6 agent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to find. You know what? Maybe it's this week. Maybe this week will be the week that we get the declassification of the FISA memo, and the American people can read for themselves what the Obama administration really did. I mean, it's October 15th. If you're going to do an October surprise, wouldn't this be it? Of course, media's not going to cover anything. Folks, we got one more hour coming your way next. Anybody see that hidden video of the medical marijuana commissioner and the applicant? Anybody see that on the Arkansas Democrat Gazette this weekend? Back in a minute.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
A day, and they would need to secure their liberties again because they understood that a government, that a powerful government can suppress the people. And, when you say that today, and I think that's the main argument, but when you say that today, people have so much faith and confidence. Oh, America would never do that because America never has done that, which is not necessarily true if you look through our history. But yeah, talk about that. That's the main reason why our right to human defense is so important.
Well, and again, Paul, I think, and this is a much deeper discussion, but through our educational system, we have been duped into believing that, again, our government is for us, and they know what's best for us. Ronald Reagan, I real regularly go to his statement of when we feel like a far and distant government can rule our lives better and know what's better for us than we do, and we're a nation that's already in trouble. And I believe that with all my heart. Because nobody knows how to protect my family better than I do. Back to your statement, I'm afraid that we have been indoctrinized to believe that the government, that the welfare system, these things are made to take care of us to the point until we have literally became, as you said earlier, sheep. My problem with that is that if you read history and you study history, then you understand there was most definitely a time in our history, as far as America, that people had to stand up. I've seen that on Facebook. I'm sure you have too. The little meme that says, "By this, if our forefathers had been here today, they would already be shooting." And that's literally the reason we have become where we are now, because somebody stood up and said, "Hey, enough is enough. We can't take anymore." It's, again, I don't want to make that sound radical, because that's not what POA 746 is about. We're not radicals. And I've said this to you before. It's not about trying to overthrow the government. It's trying to make sure the government doesn't overthrow us. Mm-hmm. And as far as assault weapons, and that's a real crazy term anyway, assault weapons. But when America was founded, the American patriots had the same kind of equipment, same kind of military weapons that the government did. And I think that's always the way it should be. I had somebody ask me the other day, what about these AR-15s? I mean, who hunts with the AR-15? Well, I've got a lot of friends that do that.
Me too. I have one that hunts with one.
Oh, absolutely. I've got several friends that do, and they're good for that. But, when we founded, when America was founded, they didn't worry. They weren't worried about the deer uprising. They weren't worried about the wild animals.
Are you sure they weren't worried about the deer uprising? I mean, come on. They're trespassers. They're on your land. They
and they have horns.
They've got horns. They eat your resources, and then they they defecate all through your woods. That's your property.
Absolutely.
They weren't worried about an uprising of deer then.
Right, exactly. They were, and in particular, even to this day, we should be able to defend ourselves against anybody or any tyrannical people or any tyrannical government that tries to take away our rights. And again, not trying to be radical, that has nothing to do with it, but it is my God-given right to be able to defend myself, defend my property, and defend my family. And if we're not careful, what we do is we literally, we're our own worst enemies at times, because we want to trust people that can't be trusted. Mm-hmm. And that's just a simple, simple fact of it. If there was no worries about somebody breaking in my house, well, then I would know I need not need a gun. But as we've seen since Genesis, that human nature, the Adamic nature, is always going to be to have to worry about other people.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think we should have to walk around in fear. But you know what? I had a guy ask me. I carry all the time, and everywhere I go. a guy asked me, he said, well, what are you scared of? And I said, well, to be honest with you, not much. Because I care.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Hey, John Calvin Martin, appreciate it with the Patriots of X746. It's always great to talk to you, sir, and we will do this again soon.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It's hour number 2. If you missed the first hour, it'll be available up at conduitnews.com. So go there now and make sure that you. Well, first of all, you want to finish listening to this hour first. I would recommend that. Hey, folks, thank you so much for listening. We can't do the show without you. Hope you have a great Monday, as good as Mondays can be. You know what I'm saying? As good as Mondays can be. The telephone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. In the first hour, I kind of explained a little bit about my motivations for interviewing libertarian candidates. This one in particular, Lee Evans. He's a libertarian running for Senate District 5. He joins us on the phone. Lee, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. Hanging out on a Monday. I'm a little wet from being out jogging this morning. The weather kind of stinks, but hey, it's all good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I hope it cools down even more. Muzzleloading season is this weekend, so I'm hoping hoping that the deer start moving. Yeah, Lee, the reason I want to have you on, number one, is because a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago, your opponent, Republican opponent in the upcoming is Bob Ballinger, who beat Brian King in a close race.
Yeah,
I wanted to have you on because I made the mistake. I was playing the audio of Bob Ballinger saying no legislator in Little Rock is benefiting from being down there, and of course he got kind of laughed at pretty hard. And I said, hey, he's the senator elect, and that was wrong, and I corrected it a couple times, but I thought, as much as it drives the Marble Palace crazy that, we give libertarians a voice on the program, we give anybody a voice, really, if they want to have an honest conversation and dialogue. I wanted to have you on, Lee, and I just want to start off, why are you running for Senate District 5?
It's where I live. I've lived in this part of the state for about 2 years now. I'm kind of a newcomer to this area, but I've lived in Arkansas all my life. And I see the everyday struggle of Arkansans. It's definitely not easy. And I'm really thankful for your reporting up there and just all the conduits, every single one of them. I know it's one big organization, and I listen to your program as much as I can, and I read it all and I soak it all up. And it's been a big influence on me, to be honest. I'm not kissing butt or anything. And it's once I got into this and saw how corrupt things were for my district and how far Ballinger is from representing anybody really in District 5, much less Arkansas, I just became filled with more and more fire. And I have a bit of a political activist background. I started out probably as more of a progressive when I was really young. I've seen that movement from the inside and what's wrong with it from the inside, frankly.
Yeah, what do you think is wrong with progressivism?
Big government in general. I'll give them some credit in that they're honest about what they're for. And my big problem with the Republican Party in Arkansas is they claim to be for small government, yet we still get Obamacare. Yet we still get all these big government programs. Not just big government. but corruption that the likes of which I've just never seen before. And I've paid attention to politics my whole life, and there's always corruption. Yeah. But, big government is the snake that eats itself. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And, yeah, we need some government. I've been working on ballot access for the Libertarian Party for the last few years in a few different states, as well as Arkansas, and I helped get the term limits initiative on the ballot here as well. And so I've talked to a lot of people throughout the country and Arkansans, and look, most people are fairly moderate. And I think really what libertarians need to offer is a reasonable balance between those two sides of the coin without giving up on who we truly are, which is trying to get government out of your life and giving the individual a true chance to shine.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely a message that should resonate with young people, and I think it is. I think it's growing more and more in terms of the idea that, hey, liberty, voluntary cooperation is way, way, way better than forced cooperation. So when did you make the turn? What was it in your life where you said, hey, this progressivism is not for me? I think limited governments is better.
It was the gun issue that really, really bothered me. I actually grew up in kind of a Democrat home. I wouldn't say Democrat home. Let me rephrase that. My grandparents come from an age in Arkansas when everybody was a Democrat. Yep. And I'm sure you know this. This was Arkansas was all Democrat back then. You talk about Winthrop Rockefeller. My grandfather loved them. And last vote he voted was Obama before he died. And isn't it weird
that Rockefeller was a Republican and he comes here? We're all Democrats here in the state back in the day, and like 80% Democrat, and yet somehow Winthrop Rockefeller comes in and he's like, he's a Republican, but everybody votes for him. I think that's such an anomaly in history.
Well, it is really interesting, and to get back to what I was saying, I grew up in a household that I didn't really grow up around guns. My uncle was actually shot at a young age and lost his sight. He just passed away a few years ago, and that's just to give you an idea of the attitude on guns that I grew up with. Not anti, just not really around it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, the way progressives kind of cast themselves is from the heart, and I think that's why you see so many kids on college campuses all around the country. That's what they're kind of clinging to, because they're seeing it from a heart level. And they need they need to see the perspective from the other side, and I really think they have. But it was the gun issue, Paul, that really kind of pulled me to the other side. And I really don't believe in there being any kind of restrictions, except if you're a violent criminal out there. Sure, we can restrict that. But other than that, we don't need any kind of gun restrictions. Arkansas doesn't need that, and that's frankly not what Arkansans believe in.
We're talking with Lee Evans. He's a Libertarian candidate for State Senate District 5 here in the state of Arkansas. You mentioned the corruption in Arkansas, which is great right now. We still don't know how far this is going to go, how high up it's going to go.
Yep.
You talk about how you think a lot of people might be fairly moderate, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Just in terms of, we are at the point now, and tell me if you agree or disagree, I think we're at the point now in Arkansas where I can't really talk about the pitfalls of big government when it comes to welfare programs or dependency, or who really is the truly needy. We can't really have, I don't think, policy conversations the way we need to about tax policy, about regulatory reform, because at this point, I don't trust any of them to not be making some sort of side deals that if they do kill a regulation, that they're not somehow getting money on the side for doing it, or there's something hidden that we don't understand. Yep. I mean, that's how bad it is. So instead of being able to have these debates about how we govern ourselves right now, I think both Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Conservatives, Liberals, whatever you want to call them, we have to demand for honest government. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what Trump is kind of exposing here. I think that's why you're seeing such a shakeup in the status quo, is because I think it feels like our government at the national level is becoming a little bit more transparent, a little bit more honest, and I would love for that to happen here in the state of Arkansas. What are your thoughts on that, Lee?
Oh, man. Well, you're so right, because we can't talk about anything else till we deal with the corruption. Like you said, we don't know what they're doing, and there may be more to come. And somehow Ballinger is at the center of all this, and nothing has came out that's 100% definitive evidence of criminal wrongdoing. And, you know, I have to emphasize that. But, you know, you guys have done some great reporting on Senate Bill 5 that he sponsored, which also Hutchison sponsored in the House, who is currently under indictment, which got rid of your right to a jury trial pre-dispute when signing a finance contract. So that means if you don't read the little fine print when you sign any kind of finance contract in Arkansas, you don't have any right to a jury trial if something happens related to that contract. And, you know, I've had a little pushback from people saying, hey, I should be able to sign my jury rights away. Okay, that's fine if that's how you feel. But in my opinion, the Arkansas Constitution, it protects your right to a jury trial inviolate.
So you think maybe that legislation was maybe predatory?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
I think it's there for the nursing home industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's preying. Well, you know, I know Jerry Cox. You know, he tried to stop them from being able to insert that into nursing home contracts. I think he successfully got them to take that out, but it's still stuck for the financial institutions.
Oh, well, that's good. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Well, God bless him. I'm glad he did that, and that's a big deal. But, you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg of stuff that Ballinger's involved with, and you've done great reporting, and you've questioned him yourself on it. And, you know, I don't even like to have to run this kind of political campaign where it looks like I'm attacking or smearing somebody. I'm not. You know, these are verifiable sourced facts, not just from you.
Yeah.
This is from a lot of different media organizations throughout Arkansas.
Well, you know, it can be an attack and not a smear. I would separate those two. I mean, I think
fair.
I think you have to, you know, I mean, everything's going to be perceived based on, you know, who what your perspective is. If you're the recipient, if you're not. But yeah, the fact is, I mean, talk a little bit about this, because we still really don't know what's going to happen with what we're going to find out with the Ecclesia College thing. You had all these legislators giving all of this money to Ecclesia College. You got 3 people behind bars as a result of that. And we still don't know exactly what all that taxpayer money, like, we haven't done an audit. We don't really know what's going to happen and that sort of thing. And
why haven't we done an audit yet?
Well, it's a great question. I think there may be some movement to try to get some information at this point, but you know, it just doesn't seem right. And the fact that, you know, all this was done, this is what's so sad to me, is that ecclesia is a Greek word for church. You know, this is a Christian institution that we're having text messages about whether or not they need to use the, you know, medical marijuana fund, which they thought would have been evil, but they're going to use evil for good, you know, and direct all that tax money to you know, college. And I know as a libertarian, you know, we can talk about marijuana, but you know what I mean? It was just it was like the college itself was no different than the schemes that we read about in government, you know?
Oh, it's not. And they're using the color of religion, the politicians, and I guess the college to dupe people, and that's so wrong on so many levels. You know, Arkansas is a Christian state, and it really, really bothers me that they're using that to just hustle this money in from the taxpayers. So, I mean, obviously, I'm against all kinds of gift funds. Legislators should not just have access to money like that to do whatever they want with. All money needs to be voted on and debated on. Every single cent.
I agree.
And I know you agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, I loved what Brian King had in there. He had this great Medicaid disclosure bill that would have helped big time. Ballinger killed it at the last second. And you've done good reporting on that too. Again, so I mean, it's I could go on and on. The corruption is just crazy. And yeah, we can talk about marijuana, sure. You probably know how I feel. I don't want any kind of rules on it. We don't need a medical marijuana commission. And it's just kind of funny that Ballinger's law partner, Travis Story, is on the commission. And Ballinger's getting all these donations from, and you can look it up. Anybody can look this up. He's getting donations from these dispensaries. And they're somehow getting approved. And I want to backtrack a little bit. I don't know if they got approved or not, but he has gotten donations from them. It's just there's so much funny business going on. We've just really got to vote out all incumbents, get some people up there with a good head on their shoulders. I'm committed to routing out this corruption in the Capitol however I can and wherever I can, because this is my state. This is where I grew up. This is all my friends and family are all in Arkansas. And it's just become insane, the amount of corruption. And, it's sad. A lot of people still don't know about it. Ballinger is going around his district and talking to people, and that's good. That's good. I mean, he should be allowed to do that, of course, but a lot of people just aren't aware of this stuff.
Yeah,
unfortunately, I don't know how.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough when you have we have a mainstream media here, Lee, that they'll do a story, when they have to about the corruption, but they're not necessarily beating down the doors of the legislature asking them, hey, are you a consultant with anybody else? Are you being paid extra? They're not really pursuing the investigative angle of this as they should be, and it's very ripe for all of that. Lee Evans, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you running.
Thank you.
Throwing your hat in the ring, like you said, this is for your friends and family because they have to live under the laws that these people are down there making, and we all have to live under it. And so it's a big deal to put your name forward, and Libertarian candidate for Senate District 5. Go ahead, Lee. If people want to find out more about you online, where do they need to go?
Just go on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page on there. Just look up Lee Evans for State Senate District 5. I'm posting stuff all the time. Send me a message anytime. I'd love to talk to any of you. Thanks so much, Paul. I appreciate the exposure.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you coming on this Monday morning. Folks, we're going to take a break. It's Conduit News Radio. We will be back here in just a moment. Mr. John Calvin Martin. John Calvin, thanks so much for being with us, sir.
Oh, thank you, Paul, for having me back on.
Yeah, so how things been going? What's going on down there in South Arkansas?
Man, I'm telling you, we are so excited about the efforts that we're putting forth, the things that are getting done. It is a slow and a long process, but, man, we are seeing some great and encouraging things happening with our people and across the state. Actually, we're doing all kinds of new meetings, and you covered it a week or so ago, the Kilt Walk in Fayetteville, open carry Kilt Walk, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I just get hysterical every time I think about that. That is so awesome that we have the right to not only open carry but to promote the heritage behind the kilts. And, again, I don't know that I could wear one. That's not my heritage.
Well, you'd be appropriating somebody else's culture. The left would have a meltdown. You can't appropriate culture.
Absolutely.
Money, power, prestige, essence. Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From Zenata Rhino Collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Speaking of medical marijuana, Hunter Field on Saturday morning, I read this. I mean, I can't say I wasn't surprised, but there's a hidden camera or hidden video that was recorded by a hidden camera that's been obtained by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It centers around Medical Marijuana Commission member Carlos Roman and a medical marijuana applicant trying to get one of these lucrative licenses, Ken Schollmeyer. And basically, this is Ken Schollmeyer trying to figure out why he didn't get a higher score. And he's asking Roman, and they talk about a lot of things. They talk about the fact Schollmeyer says, hey, well, it's obvious that this person got money. I mean, if you scored him a 40-something and somebody else scored him a 90, then it's obvious that there's something going on that's fishy. Hunter Field writes, an applicant for one of Arkansas's first medical marijuana growing licenses secretly videotaped a meeting earlier this year with a member of the panel given the task of issuing the lucrative permits. Hang on one second. I've got to click the sign-in button. Joe, will you throw this article up there real quick? I know we got to go here in just a minute, but we are signed in over at that computer, so I can read this. Here we go. Now I'm back up. The recording, obtained this week by the Demgaz, reveals more about the attempted bribery allegation that's loomed over the rollout. That's the whole thing. You had in court documents it came out that there was an attempted bribe. And now, presumably, this is Dr. Carlos Roman saying, hey, they tried to bribe me. Now, the allegation here in the story, from what I can tell, is that Schollmeyer was videotaping it so that if Roman agreed to the bribe, he had that on video. Which I guess what would that, I don't know, I don't know what that would do. It's Natural State Agronomics, which didn't score well enough to receive the 5 cultivation licenses, was rated poorly by 4 commission members, but it was the second highest of Roman's scores, raising eyebrows when the grades were revealed in February. The bulk of the videotaped meeting was a conversation between Roman and Schollmeyer about why Roman thought the other commissioners graded Natural State Agronomics application poorly. I appreciate everything Schollmeyer told Roman in the video. If I owe you something, let me know. No, sir, not at all, Roman said. A kind word in your favor if you hear my name mentioned. You see Senate President Pro Temp Jonathan Dismang or say something, yeah, reappoint Dr. Roman to that commission. If you see the governor, just say, I think Dr. Roman is a swell guy. He ought to stay on that commission. But that's all. That's all. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, reached about the video on Friday, Roman said he was unaware he was being recorded during the meeting and he had felt pressured into the meeting by Schollmeyer. Dr. Ralph Teed, a Newport dentist, helped arrange the meetings. Roman said he contacted the FBI after Schollmeyer and his associates tried to use secretly recorded footage to extort him. Roman said he voluntarily turned over his bank, tax, and phone records to the FBI. I should have gone to the FBI earlier, Roman said. I've never experienced anything like this. Can you imagine if we get casinos in Arkansas? The bidding process is going to be above board. I wonder how many investors are trying. They're Amazon right now. Amazon search. tiniest camera? What's the tiniest hidden camera available? Back in a minute.
Absolutely. I got in a discussion about that, because somebody on our page, on our main page, said, "Well, I just don't believe that's what POA 746 is about." Well, I believe it is, because it's about our heritage and our rights. And I told that guy, I said, it'd be the same difference as me walking down the street, open carrying with a rebel flag.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. That's my heritage, And so, even though that stirs some things up in another aspect, of course, but man, we're having such a great time. It is awesome. I'm loving traveling across the state, meeting new people, and Paul, I'm just blown away that people really have bought into the narrative that the government knows best for us, and they are our friends, and they take care of us, and we should always obey what they say, even if it contradicts the laws. And I grew up that way, a good person is someone who never questions. Well, that's just not the American way.
That's true.
We were founded on people that were just tired of being bullied and being ruled by tyrants. And I want to be careful there, because I don't ever want to give the impression that we're a bunch of lunatics running around wanting to shoot somebody. That's just not what POA 746 is about at all. We're pastors, we're business owners, we're farmers, we're people that just love our country and love our rights. Mm-hmm. And, man, we're traveling across the state and having meetings. And down here in southeast Arkansas, it's a little harder because of the mindset, But we're definitely educating people and talking to people. We've got we had a meeting in Warren, Arkansas, just a few weeks ago, and decided to do an open carry walk, mm-hmm. because some of the officials. Let me rephrase that. We had heard that some of the officials said, "Well, there won't be no gun carried around here." Well, that's just not what was said. Senator Linda Collins Smith came down, visited with some of the officers, the Leos there in town, and everything just was awesome. They even took pictures together. I mean, it was just amazing, an amazing time.
Good for her, Good for her using her platform to say, "Hey, this is credible. This is what the law says."
Exactly.
That's fantastic. So you said the mindset, though. You said because of the mindset down here. What is that mindset? Is it the mindset that we find on the radical left that say that guns kill people? It's not the evil heart of man that is acting to kill somebody.
Yes, I'm afraid that there's a whole generation that has grown up. When I was in high school, it was very hard to find a pickup in the parking lot of the high school that didn't have a shotgun or a 20.
All right, here we go, folks. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. We got the midterms. They're coming up. They're really close, and the stakes, I think, are pretty high. And I just wanted to have somebody who's, following this as well on the program, talk a little bit about it. We have Anita Wells on the line. Anita is the 1st District Republican chair, and she joins us now via phone. Anita, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Paul. I think this is a great way to start the week before the midterm elections.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So, what are you hearing on the ground from fellow Republicans? What are they saying about these midterm elections? Are they excited? Is what we heard true after the Kavanaugh situation? Republican voter enthusiasm really was on the rise.
Well, I really think that the Republicans have the momentum going into the election, and my only concern, we always have to be concerned about voter apathy, getting the people to the polls. We had the turnout in 2016 when candidate Donald Trump was on the ballot. And, however, were they voting for Donald Trump or were they voting against Hillary Clinton? And so this time we don't have a Hillary Clinton running. So who are the folks going to vote against. So we have to make sure they're going to the polls to vote for somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, and but I do think that, President Trump at some of these rallies across the country, he has essentially said, "Look, I mean, I'm not on the ballot, but I kind of am." And so if you want the good policies to continue, then you got to vote. You got to vote for your Republicans. You can't vote for the Democrat. If they're going to be voting against anybody, I mean, Nancy Pelosi comes to mind. I know that's essentially what they've tried to tie Clark Tucker to in the 2nd District, running against Republican incumbent French Hill. And I think French Hill is going to go back. I think the people of the Central Arkansas are going to send him back. But it's really important. Let me ask you this, Anita. I mean, as a Republican, did you think during the primary that Donald Trump was going to be as successful as he's been so far?
I did not, and so I'm very happy and satisfied and with the direction that we're going. And he's really made the progress that we've needed in the U.S. politics. And so people have to realize that U.S. politics, there's a hierarchy there, and it goes all the way down to our local levels. And so we have to do our part, and we have to vote in every election, and that's where the change comes from. So really, basically, we're tied to Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs us. He needs that majority in the Senate and the House, and really it all starts down at the local grassroots level, the local level, JPs even.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And I think what we could be doing here, as we're being broadcast, obviously digitally on the internet, also to radio stations across Arkansas that we're very grateful to have as affiliates. Everybody knows somebody that doesn't live in Arkansas, and you probably know, if you think, you're probably going to figure out, I know somebody in one of these battleground states, like a Senate race. Let's talk about a Senate race for a second. You got Missouri, Claire McCaskill. She needs to go away, right? You have Marsha Blackburn. We got to keep that Tennessee. Got to keep Tennessee red. Anybody in Arkansas know anybody in West Virginia? Tell them to get out and go vote against Joe Manchin is what I would say. South Dakota, not to mention, what about these House districts in California? I mean, they're saying that's where the Democrats might pick up the most ground, might pick up the most seats. Does your friend in California, do they live in these districts? Call them, tell them, hey, listen, get out and go vote. I mean, this is a national movement here, and if we want things to continue to progress the way they're going, you have to get out and vote. Anita,
right.
Are you there with us? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I am. I'm here. And so I would personally like to bring it to a local level, just to give an example of voter apathy or voter not being informed. In Greene County, and I may be changing topic here, but in Greene County we had a JP race in the primary elections. The runoff, we had 7 voters for one candidate and 15 voters for another candidate.
Wow.
And so that's 22 votes. So my question, why do people view JP races as unimportant? JP positions are part of that hierarchy that I'm talking about in the United States government. So, Paul, what would be your first thought if you received 7 votes?
Oh, I would be like, I have a mandate from the people. No, I would be pretty, I don't know, I'd be pretty disappointed, that really nobody really cares about. No, maybe people just don't know, JPs, they're responsible for what goes on in your county. They're going to set tax policy. They're going to do a lot of stuff.
Exactly. And so then again, Donald Trump, or in the Senate, the majority in the Senate and the House of conservatives, they need our support on local level. We have to make every vote count, and every election is important, and people need to know that. So, we have to get out the vote is so important.
Yeah.
And that's one example.
Well, Anita, I really appreciate you coming on. I know it's it's exciting out there. Can you, real quick before you go, can you tell us a little bit about how the Republican Party is trying to expand in maybe some of the Delta counties in the 1st District as you go further south? What's the progress? What's the update on that?
We really had a lot of success in southern Arkansas. We have candidates who are running on the state level, state representatives, Ricky Lattimore in District 11, and we have Jason Dobson running in the Helena, Stuttgart area. Then that goes down to Deshay County. So we have people who are running now that we haven't had people in the past, so that makes a big difference. And on another note, we had the first Congressional District Republican Party of Arkansas meeting this Saturday in Newport, and that we had that in Jackson County, and there's 29 counties in 1st District, and we had well over half of the counties represented. And Deshay County, Dumas, they were there. Chico County, Lake Village was there. Helena, folks from Helena were there. Monroe County. So people in the Delta we're all networking together and becoming that team that we need in Arkansas. And so the Delta is really growing. As a matter of fact, October 30th in Dumas, Deshay County is having their Lincoln Day dinner, and Rick Crawford will be the speaker at that Lincoln Day dinner. So folks are active down in the South and the Delta. And so we're really seeing a change there.
Anita Wells, I appreciate it. It's always great to have you on, and I appreciate the work that you're doing in the 1st District.
Okay. Thank you, Paul, for having me on. Do I have one more minute? Did I just say something?
Yeah, what else? What else you got? Yeah.
Well, I really have a personal concern is the vote for the Arkansas Supreme Court candidates. There's not going to be a D or an R beside the names. People have to be informed about the Arkansas Supreme Court ticket and the people that are running for that. And so, we need a constitutional conservative for that position. And I just hope that people will be informed and know exactly who they're going to vote for for the Supreme Court when they go to vote next week.
All right, yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. Matter of fact, on Thursday, I think we have booked David Sterling. I think is going to be on the program on Thursday. Talk, he's the candidate, one of the candidates in that race between him and Courtney Goodson, and we'll be talking with David Sterling. Anita, you have a great week. Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Good talking to you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. So it's always great to talk to her. Get out and vote. Call your friends. If they live in other states, if they're in these battleground states, just do it. One thing, I think they say politics is taboo. Don't believe it. That's what people say when they just want people to remain. They don't want us to talk to one another. They just want us to get mad at each other. Just talk to somebody. Don't go into it wanting to start a fight, but just go in with the facts, go in with the truth. So last week, I told you that we wanted you to title a video. We're going to be announcing that title sometime today. If you go to subscribe to the Conduit News YouTube page, we made a video juxtaposed Vice President Mike Pence in his strong speech against China and the dangers of China versus what Arkansas has been doing with your taxpayer dollars trying to recruit communist Chinese businesses here in Arkansas, and how a lot of these deals are on hold now. But I wanted to, put this video up, and we're going to be putting it up sometime today, probably around noon, with the title. People have wanted, they've wanted to call it everything from Asia Hutchinson to Razor Dragon Rising. We'll see which one we go with, but I really appreciate your input on this. I was Saturday morning, I was with a friend who was, I would just say, not very up to speed on what I was trying to convey about the dangers of China. And this person just didn't know. And so I sat this person down and I had him watch the video that you're about to watch and listen to. And at the end of it, he said, "Wow, okay, I understand. I get it now." And that's why I made the video, because I knew these audio clips next to one another would convince a lot of people as to what really is going on here in Arkansas, people who maybe don't follow what's going on very closely. So let's cue it up. Take it away, Joe.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before. to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown 9-fold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So, Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Li to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Li. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas, in Arkansas.
The Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary.
Chairman Li and I met yesterday. Chairman Li indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive, often with the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers. And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. You know, I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself. And I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. You know, we need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government, and the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In the rack in the back window, because we would go hunting, either on the way to school or after school. But that's not the generation we live in now, and because of social media and movies and all the nonsense, guns have been portrayed as evil, and only evil people have them. And boy, that couldn't be further from the truth, Paul. And of course, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but if we're not careful, what we do is we any rights that we have that are regulated are soon to be taken away from us. And and it's almost paradoxical, but
need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
If you want this broadcast, if you want that video early, you're just going to have to go to conduitnews.com and get the video archives and watch it that way. But we will be posting that Vice President Mike Pence audio and the Governor Asa Hutchinson audio, Arkansas audio, up at YouTube, Conduit News. Subscribe. Click the little bell to receive notifications. We'll be posting that with the title sometime today, probably around noon, I would suspect. And I would be very... I'm hearing from you guys on Facebook that you guys are really excited about it, so you can share it with your friends and everything else. I think it's going to be a valuable tool to really listen. We just are about education. Let's cut through it. What is our economic policy? Our economic development policy. I wish we didn't give any incentives away, but if you're going to give incentives away, why not American companies? Why China? That's my question. That is my question. And still don't have an answer on that, but we do definitely know that the economic policy that Arkansas has been pursuing, trying to recruit communist Chinese companies, let them use our resources and send the profits back home, is kind of all jammed up right now because of President Donald Trump and his policy with China right now. And then, of course, you look at the FBI, the CIA, their investigations as well. Folks, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday. Arkansas, be safe.